Welcome to the news. A look at stories making headlines. Chief government spokesperson Dorcelia has justified the delay in prosecuting criminals swindling members of the public using fake Facebook accounts. The Law Association of Zambia says that the constitution was not breached when President Edgar Lungu recently designated his powers to the Minister of Defense. And now the news in detail. Chief Government spokesperson Dorcelia has justified the delay in prosecuting criminals that have been swindling members of the public using fake Facebook accounts. Ms. Celia says it is difficult for the Zambia Information and Communications Technology Authority, ZICTA, and the Zambia Police to prosecute cyber criminals due to lack of legal backing. She says that as much as criminals can be identified and reported to the police, they cannot be brought to book in the absence of a legal framework for prosecuting cyber crimes. Ms. Leah has told journalists at a media briefing that this is for this reason that government has come up with a cyber security and a cyber crime bills, e-commerce bill and a data protection bill. She states that it is these bills once enacted into law that will be used to control and punish the abuse of social media in the country.
Because clearly prosecution is a matter for the police, but even the police did not have a legal framework providing for them to prosecute such cases. It's why now the Minister of Communication and Transport and even the Ministry of Home Affairs and Justice, we are saying we need new legislation to provide for these new crimes that were not thought of before there were cell phones. These are new crimes now. Crimes that were not thought of before there was Facebook, before there was WhatsApp calls and so on and so forth. So we are trying to provide for this legislation so that we can address these lacunas that we have in our current legal system. So ZICTA might even be able to identify, but they have to work with the police, and the police needed that backing to prosecute such cases. And the three laws, I think one is the financial transaction law, the other one is the database, the data protection law, and I forget the other one. I think it's the security law. So there are three of them, and we've thought they're going to be debated in Parliament at the next legislation sitting next year, and the idea is that then we should be able to provide for the lacunas that have been existing. However, this is a very dynamic technology. It's changing every day. While people are still on Facebook in this country, the majority of young people, there's already Twitter, there's already Instagram. I'm sure by next year we'll be talking about something else. And we always have to think ahead. What kind of laws should we provide so that we can protect people's privacy, we can protect people from defamation, we can protect the weak, the young, the vulnerable in our societies, and we can also protect the good journalists from the fake journalists. This is such a dynamic situation, and we'll have to keep addressing ourselves to the law so that we can cater for all the loopholes that might be existing.
The Law Association of Zambia says that the constitution was not breached when Republican President Edgar Lungu recently took leave within the country and designated his powers to the Minister of Defense. Last President Eddie Mwitwa says the Zambian constitution does permit the Republican President to designate his executive functions when he is out of office in the absence of the Vice President. Minister Mwito says that this permission is provided for in Article 109, Sub-Article 2 of the Republican Constitution. He tells Q News by telephone that under this sub-article, however, whoever is acting president cannot appoint or remove anyone from office using the presidential prerogative. Mr. Mwito says in an event that the head of state dies while a cabinet minister is acting president, such an individual will continue in this position until the vice president is back in the country. He says that this hypothetical situation is captured by the Constitution in three possible scenarios under which executive functions can be exercised by another person other than the Republican president.
Because the Constitution envisages three scenarios. One, the president is out of the country. The vice president must perform the executive functions. But if the vice president is also not in the country or for some reason is incapable of performing those executive functions, then the member of cabinet appointed by the president must perform those executive functions. Now, if the president and the vice president are both out of the country or for some reason are unable to perform those functions, the cabinet minister would have the right to continue performing until one of them becomes capable of exercising or performing those executive functions. Because
Germany and the European Union have partnered to help strengthen Zambia's capacity in public finance management and water management for agriculture in a 23.5 million euros joint program. This follows the signing of 2 agreements for the program that will run from 2019 to 2022, in which the EU will provide a grant worth 20 million euros, with Germany providing a 3.5 million euros grant. Speaking during the signing ceremony in Lusaka, Germany ambassador to Zambia, Akim Burkhardt, says that the joint program will be implemented by the German Technical Cooperation GIZ. Mr. Burkhardt says with regards to public finance management, the program will focus on tax administration, budget planning and execution, intergovernmental fiscal relations and digitalization of public financial bodies. He states that within these areas of focus, the 3-year program will center on, among other issues, public investment management and public procurement.
The program will focus on 4 main areas: tax administration, budget planning and execution, intergovernmental fiscal relations, as well as digitalization of public financial institutions. Within these areas, it will focus on issues such as public investment planning and management, public procurement, tax compliance of large and medium-scale enterprises, as well as digital tax data analysis. The project will also aim to make it easier for citizens to be tax compliant through e-solutions, as well as the piloting of a mobile tax office. As these issues are relevant to all parts of government, the project will work closely with a large range of government institutions: Ministry of Finance, Ministry of National Development Planning, Zambia Revenue Authority, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Energy, and the Zambia Public Procurement Agency.
And EU Ambassador to Zambia and Special Representative to COMESA, Alessandro Mariani, says in the water management for agriculture, the program will establish irrigation systems for small-scale farmers in Lower Kafue area. Mr. Mariani says the project will promote coordinated development and management of water, land and other related resources. He says that this is in order to maximize economic and social welfare without compromising the sustainability of vital ecosystems in the area.
An increase in the frequency of high temperatures, dry spells during the last decades is adding to the water availability constraints during the dry season. This is very unfortunate, considering that during the rainy season large amounts of waters are available in the lower Kafue sub-catchment area. Therefore, efficient use of water and management system, including harvesting, storage and efficient irrigation technologies, are critical to increase year-round water availability without further threatening the water balance of the area. The project we are launching today will address these challenges, promote a coordinated development and management of water, land and related resources. Will contribute to the increased productivity of smallholders and to more sustainable use and better management of the scarce resource water. It will support a range of activities to include the expansion of sustainable agriculture water management for irrigation purposes.
The Health Professions Council of Zambia HPCZ has lifted the suspension of 2 medicine programs at the Copperbelt University's Michael Chilufya Sata School of Medicine. Last month, HPCZ suspended the CBU School of Medicine's Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery and the Bachelor of Dental Surgery on the basis of lack of capacity to offer the programs. HPCZ, a senior public relations officer, Chinyota Msimuko, has told a media briefing that to lift the suspension has been arrived after the Copperbelt University met the minimum prerequisites and committed to an agreed rectification roadmap to continue addressing all the remaining recommendations. Ms. Msimuko says all academic activities in the said programs have since been allowed to begin with immediate effect. He has since commended CBU management, students, parents, sponsors, regulators, and other stakeholders for the support rendered to the council.
Previously withdrawn medical training programs at the Copperbelt University's Michael Chilufya-Sata School of Medicine in Ndola. The reinstated training programs are the Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery, MB-CHB, and the Bachelor of Dental Surgery. Now, following the withdrawal of the aforementioned programs, the Council acknowledges the efforts to correct the areas of want and or infringements by the training institutions and is hereby reinstating the two named programs. This decision from HPCZ comes after CBU met the minimum prerequisites and committed to an agreed rectification roadmap to continue addressing all remaining recommendations. HPCZ takes this opportunity to thank the Copperbelt University, as well as students, parents, sponsors, regulators, all key stakeholders, and the general public for the support rendered.
Still in our local news, Finance Minister Margaret Mwanakatwe says government is focused on building a nation that depends on its own resources for national development. Mrs. Mwanakatwe says the country has to enhance its revenue collection for it to be self-reliant. Speaking when she officiated at the official opening of the Zambia Revenue Authority East Park Mall Service Center, Mrs. Mwanakatwe has commended ZRA for reforming and modernizing its operations. She says how revenue is collected and used has a great bearing on governance. She has noted that the mobilization of domestic revenue can be realized if the means of collecting revenue are brought closer to the people and businesses that seek to pay their tax obligations. The minister has urged the ZRA Commissioner General and his management team to proactively engage stakeholders so as to help the country cultivate and sustain a positive culture of paying taxes among citizens.
You will recall that during my presentation of the 2019 national budget, I mentioned that there is need to enhance domestic revenue mobilization. This focus cannot be realized if we do not bring the means of collecting this revenue closer to the people and corporate business that seek out their tax obligations. The reason we have to enhance domestic revenue collections as a country is for us to be self-reliant. We as a government are focused on building a nation that depends on its own resources for national development. How we collect revenue and use taxes collected has a great bearing on governance and shows how deeply citizens are engaged in the overall governance of the country. The ability to show citizens how the taxes are utilized, as demonstrated by the government through the different developmental projects, creates confidence in the citizenry that indeed paying taxes creates a destiny full of hope. I am glad that the Zambia Revenue Authority has rebranded and now believes that taxes should create a personal conscience that says, my tax, your tax, our destiny.
Speaking earlier, ZRA Commissioner General Kingsley Chanda is optimistic that the opening and operationalization of service centers in different locations all over the country will assist to decongest ZRA offices and bring about improved service delivery to taxpayers. Mr. Chanda states that the authority plans to open as many service centers as possible in an effort to enhance compliance amongst citizens. He says East Parkmore Service Center brings the total number of such centers to 5 in Lusaka.
Our focus still remains to open more service centers across the country. Today, we have delivered on our pledge for another service center. This opening, Honorable Minister, brings our service centers to 5 within Lusaka. These includes the Civic Center, Ministry of Lands, Kwacha House, and the Cosmopolitan Mall. As Lusaka, Honorable Minister, we intend to open more service centers on the Copper Belt, starting with Kitwe in the next 2 months. It is expected that the operationalization of service centers in different locations in the country will assist to decongest ZRA offices and bring about improved service delivery to our taxpayers. Another anticipated benefit is increasing compliance and revenue collection as more taxpayers will be attended to more efficiently and in a timely manner. It is foreseen that the decentralization of the advice centers will bring services closer to the locations of the respective businesses, and thus contributes to reducing the cost of compliance. Honorable Minister, ladies and gentlemen, our energized drive towards customer focus has reduced the number of walking taxpayers at the advice center, especially at our head office. And as you know, Honorable Minister, we are not backing the
Former Minister of Finance Katela Kalumba has joined those advising government to start forging much smarter partnerships with China. Dr. Kalumba is advising government to ensure whatever partnership it enters into with the Chinese government is based on the understanding of what the nation's strategy and vital interests are. He says government should also negotiate based on Zambia's resource base, capacity, and organizational skills. Dr. Kalumba, who served in various ministerial positions in the Frederick Chiluba-led MMD government, tells Q News that Zambia does not need a simple reproductive squeeze in any of its bilateral partnerships. He notes that much of the current debt Zambia owes China was accrued under very bad terms. Dr. Kalumba is however optimistic that if the loans secured from China are properly managed and invested, the country will be able to pay off what it owes. The former Minister of Finance has also expressed a doubt that China should seize Zambia's assets in an event that the country defaulted on its debt repayment.
Smart partnership is required between Zambia and China, and there is a lot more China can gain from Zambia, not by seizing companies that are more or less very small companies compared to what China has. If our loans that are secured from China are properly managed, we'll be able to pay off our loans through proper investment and management. And I've read a number of missions of ministers going to China to discuss the loan portfolio. And I'm sure they're continuing in that effort. But China loses its international diplomatic pace if it will do something like that. It means many more African countries and many other developing countries outside Africa would be scared stiff about that. So it's a very pragmatic country. They will find other ways of negotiating and getting their loans repaid.
The Young African Leaders Initiative, YALI, has implored Zambians to respect the independence of the judiciary. YALI President Andrew Ntewewe is concerned with the incessant attacks on the Constitutional Court days before the court delivers a crucial judgment pertaining to President Edgar Lungu's eligibility to stand in the 2021 elections. Mr. Ntewewe is particularly disappointed with the sentiments attributed to supposedly eminent people who have gone as far as demanding for the abolishment of the Constitutional Court. He says that the judicial independence is a very important pillar in a democratic society, adding that as a foundation for democracy, the judiciary is the beacon of hope for the nourishment and growth of democracy. And Mr. Ntewewe has appealed to all parties in the eligibility case to exercise maximum restraint, maturity and sobriety. You're still watching QTV Main News at 19. We get to Central Province, where Central Province Minister Sidney Mshanga has disclosed that some Indian investors have shown interest to construct a 750-bed capacity hospital in the province. Mr. Mshanga says this follows the hosting of the 2018 Central Province Investment Forum and the Expo. Speaking at a press briefing, Mr. Mshanga says that the province is thinking of having the said hospital constructed between Chitambo and Chisamba districts. Mr. Mshanga says that this is because the Kabwe General Hospital has now been elevated to Central Hospital level. He is confident that once completed, the new hospital and other hospitals in the province will feed into Kabwe Central Hospital.
2 weeks after the successive hosting of the Investment Expo, and the actual investment, we are talking about $300 million, where we are going to have more than 36 companies, and these 36 companies will assist in the employment creation. During the construction stage, 2,000 employment opportunities will be provided for the local people, especially the young people. Then after the construction stage, we are talking about more than 5,000 jobs, and the economic facility zone will be sitting on the 500 hectares piece of land. Then apart from that, after the expo, we have had the investors wanting to put their money or their resources in the energy sector. We'll be upgrading the Lusiwasi hydropower station. That is to increase the capacity of electricity supply for the various investment opportunities that we have in Central Province under the energy sector, tourism sector, just to mention a few. Then after the investment expo, we are talking about construction of a 120 megawatt solar power plant that is in Mumbai. This is also underway. Actually, the investors came on board after the successive hosting of the investment expo. And also there is an intention by the Indian investor to construct a 750-bed capacity hospital in the province. We are thinking of having this hospital constructed between Chibombo and Chisamba, because Kabwe General Hospital has since been turned into a central hospital.
And speaking at the same event, Luapula Province Minister Nixon Chilangwa also reviewed that over 70 companies have shown interest in investing in the province. Mr. Chilangwa is happy that the province is gaining popularity among investors since the hosting of the province's first ever investment expo.
That with so much endowment, it's with so much resource, natural resource at our disposal, what is it that we can do about it? What is it that we need to do? So for us as Luapula, we took the first step. We organized the Luapula Expo, which was a very, very successful expo. And from there, we have started the results coming in. Obviously, some people expect results to come in 2 days, others expect results to come in 3 days, others in a week. But life doesn't work like that. Results from any adventure takes a bit of time. If you want to have a successful national team, you must start from the grassroots and move, and it takes a couple of years. But we are happy with the progress we have done so far in Luapula Province. As a result of the expo, we have over 70 companies that are at various stages of investing in Luapula Province. We have nearly 10 or over 10 who are already present on the ground and they're doing wonderful things. And others are in various stages, some in the acquisition of land, some in the sorting out of the paperwork, which takes a bit of time. But we are set as Luapula Province. We believe that in 3 to 4 years' time from now, Luapula will never be the same, and it shouldn't be the same. We can't be in the same place forever. We have to move. And that responsibility falls squarely on everybody in the local province, on every individual local province, every institution local province.
Meanwhile, Northern Province Minister Brian Muntubile has told journalists that his province has received $4.5 billion in investment pledges in various sectors following a successful hosting of Northern Province Investment Expo. Mr. Muntubile says that the province has received overwhelming recognition from both international and local investors who have shown interest in investing in agriculture, tourism, among other sectors.
We also have a group of Indian farmers that have expressed interest to invest in the Kalungush farming block, a group of Chinese farmers and a group of South African farmers that were represented by the president of the World Farmer Association. He actually came for the expo. So we've got quite a number of countries and farmers coming from a number of countries to invest in the Kalungush farming block. So in brief, the colleagues, we want to say, to borrow Honorable Chilangua's words, expos work. What we have so far is by just hosting these events, the province has been put on spotlight. We are receiving expressions of interest almost every day, especially in the tourism sector. You realize that the very fact that World War I ended in Zambia has generated a lot of interest in the world over, because World War I is really big business, and many people would want to come and see the gun that fired the last shots of World War I. They want to come and see the arms that were busy recovering from Lake Chila, where weapons of World War I were dumped. And they also want to come and see the spot where the surrender actually happened. We were blessed that during the commemoration, the grandson of General von Lettow-Vorbeck, who was the German general that surrendered to the British general, General Edwards, he actually came to commemorate the centenary commemoration with us. And the British government had sent an envoy, a general who is a part of the House of Lords, Lord David Richards, to represent the British government. So clearly, it's no doubt now that the whole world has acknowledged the very fact that World War I ended in Zambia.
In health news, Minister of Health Dr. Chitalu Chilufya has noted the importance of investing in radiation protection in the country. Dr. Chilufya says the Radiation Protection Authority needs to be capacitated and supported for it to effectively deliver its services of ensuring for protection of the users of radiation. He has assured Radiation Protection Authority of government's assurance to provide resources to enable it provide resources required to enhance its regulatory functions. In a speech read on his behalf by Ministry Permanent Secretary for Administration, Dr. Kennedy Malama, during the official opening of the 3 days annual awareness conference in radiation protection, Dr. Chilufya acknowledged the great risk that can be caused by nuclear if not properly handled. Dr. Chilufya is, however, happy that a number of educational programs are being developed and enhanced to provide training in nuclear science and technology to help promote nuclear radiation safety. He has since expressed optimism that the 3 days conference will not discuss measures aimed at addressing the existing challenges and optimize the opportunities in nuclear and radiation safety.
The government of the Republic of Zambia, under the able leadership of His Excellency Mr. Edgar Chagwa, places great importance to increase the safety culture in the radiation users. Thus, government has continued and shall continue supporting the Radiation Protection Authority in providing resources to enhance its regulatory functions and capacity. And those resources are logistical, technical, as the case may be. As I mentioned earlier, the landscape in Zambia is changing very fast when it comes to issues of radiation. And it's important that the regulator is also capacitated, supported, so that it can perform its mandate as expected. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, application of nuclear science and technology in Zambia has continued to provide benefits since 1972, when the first law on ionizing radiation was established. These applications have mostly been in the medical field. Nevertheless, as you may note, The application of nuclear science and technology in Zambia has tremendously increased and is projected to increase, even outside the health sector. This is one of the most dynamic platforms in our country and is changing very, very fast. In view of these developments, nuclear and radiation safety is key to ensuring protection of workers, the public, and the environment today and the future generations.
A research study conducted by the Policy Monitoring Research Center, PMRC, has recommended for the creation of a procurement function that will run alongside the planning function in a government. The study has revealed that currently the procurement process in the energy sector, for example, is lengthy and discouraged would-be investors in the sector. Presenting the findings of the research study, PMRC Head of Monitoring and Evaluation, Akabondo Kabechani, observed that Zambia has adequate resources to generate other sources of energy. Mr. Akabondo notes that the challenge, however, is finding investors to invest in the sector. He states that with the growing demand for electricity in the country, there is an urgent need for government to bring on board the private sector so as to ensure continuity to grow.
To improve its independence and therefore its effectiveness in serving the investors and consumers' interests. It's one of the key lessons for reform. I think that we had listed even in our previous study. And so to conclude, we'll see that the government has successfully stabilized the country's energy position since 2016. I'm sure you all attest that from where we're coming from, the load shedding that we experienced in 2014-2015, we have seen significant improvements. Of course, at the moment, we are experiencing load management due to maintenance works that are being conducted by our state utility companies in order to improve the networks. However, we cannot, as a country, afford to be complacent. Demand for electricity will only continue to grow, driven by economic domestic consumption as populations, income, and electrification levels rise, underpinned by economic growth. So our paper.
And Minister of Energy Matthew Nkua, who launched the PMRC research report, says that the successful privatization of the Copperbelt Energy Corporation, CEC, has provided an example of new avenues through which the energy sector can be funded. Mr. Nkua says that this example of new avenues of funding the energy sector has also facilitated the emergence of an indigenous private managerial class. He says government does, however, recognize the need to raise tariffs to levels that will make the electricity supply industry sustainable and contribute more meaningfully to economic development.
Tariffs are moving towards cost reflective, and although they are for many years among the lowest in the world, since 2008, ERB has granted the Zambia Electricity Supply Corporation, so it's not Zambia Electricity Supply Corporation now, sorry, I should have cancelled this out. It's ZESCO, it's just an acronym name. I know that's where it comes from. So we always think it's Zambia Electricity Supply Corporation. It's not now only called ZESCO. So it's called ZESCO. Significant tariff awards. For many years, the Zambian government was reluctant to allow tariffs to rise. There was surplus generation capacity in the early 1980s, and consumption and demand growth were stagnant as a result of economic decline. Therefore, there seemed no reason to increase prices. Towards the end of the 1990s, Zambian economic fortunes changed for the better. In the first decade of the new millennium, the country was recording robust economic growth.
Meanwhile, PMRC Executive Director Bernadette Decker says her policy think institution decided to provide a power sector roadmap as a way to deliver the country's electricity needs. Ms. Decker has since implored the Ministry of Energy to take the recommendations from the report as a way to ensure the effective reforms of the energy sector.
As PMRC, it is our belief that this study will contribute significantly to to the ongoing process of reforming our energy sector, which plays a critical role in achieving our nation's goal of diversification and resilience as outlined in the 7th National Development Plan. Our job as a policy think tank, Honorable Minister, is to provide decision makers such as yourselves at all levels with the necessary evidence that will inform policy processes in order to achieve social and economic development. And also, allow me to comment Honorable Belemu as chairman of the Energy Committee, that he's taking interest not beyond just asking for input from PMRC but also coming. So this is a collective, we see that there's a collective interest in trying to offer solutions in the energy sector.
The Zambia Shore Society has reiterated its commitment to redeveloping and modernizing the Lusaka Shore grounds. Shore Society President Caroline Silwamba says one of the objectives in terms of development of the society is to move towards a shore grounds which has no walls. Speaking to Q News on the sidelines of the official opening of the Green City Office Complex, Mrs. Silomba said that the society will lease out the land surrounding the showgrounds to developers so that the showgrounds can be fenced by structures instead of orphans. She says the society looks forward to meaningful development such as the one put up by Green City on all leased properties in the showgrounds. And Mrs. Silomba has stated that the cost of maintaining the showground is high, and as such, the Shore Society has engaged developers in the area to contribute towards the monthly cost. She has since assured of the society's commitment to addressing some of the challenges in the area, such as damaged roads, with support from various developers.
Well, first of all, as the Shore Society, we are trying to build along all our periphery. Why? Because we want showgrounds without walls, which means that we are going to lease our land to developers, and these, whatever they are going to put up, will act as a buffer to our grounds itself. So it will be an open area, right, without walls, and these will be our walls, the developers. So this partnership between us and the Green City, we are very excited as the Agriculture and Commercial Society, because if we could only have developers of this magnitude, the whole city, I think it would be a beautiful city. Not just the city, but it will affect the whole country.
Meanwhile, Green City Managing Director Bob Muyaba shared how the Green City office complex came about.
Green City Properties is sitting on 5,000 square meters, but the office space is about 5,900 to 6,000 square. This journey started 2008, like 10 years back. That's when we got this list from the Social Society. Maybe I could show you exactly where this journey started from. This where we're standing now, it started from there. That bare land you see here is where we're standing today. And we thought we'll start by cleaning up. Like you can see from these pictures, there we are with the partners there. And here we are, we're standing today, enjoying this place, which we thought was a dream then, but God himself has made it possible.
Some civil society organizations, CSOs, are gathered in Lusaka to celebrate Human Rights Day and the role of the civil society in supporting human rights in Zambia. Speaking during the celebration, a civil society organization Environment Herb Governing Council Chairperson John Zulu called on CSOs to build relationships among and between people and nature. He says that the CSO Environment Herb on its part generates relevant and appropriate information through research.
I am delighted to announce that in Zambia we have a civil society organization, Environmental Hub, founded for information sharing, improved communication, and networking between and among civil society organizations in environmental and natural resource management sector. The vision of the Civil Society Environmental Hub is, and I quote, a well-conceived Zambian environment that supports and sustains biodiversity, end of quote. And in order to realize this vision, the Civil Society Organization Environmental Hub, ladies and gentlemen, set for itself objectives as follows. 1, facilitate civil society organizations' engagement with stakeholders in the environmental and natural resource management sector. And 2, generate relevant and appropriate information through research and other activities.
Speaking at the same event during a presentation, a human rights-based approach consultant, Patricia Malasha, observed that participation in decision-making process gives the marginalized a voice.
When it comes to the realization of human rights, it's not only the responsibility of government, but it's the responsibility of each one of us. So we have a role to play, and that's what human rights-based approach tries to be. And then it recognizes the real success real success in tackling poverty and vulnerability requires giving the poor and the vulnerable a voice. It's about addressing discrimination, marginalization, but human rights-based approach actually works to respect the voice and the real protection of the people and the individuals, and for environment, even the environment that these individuals live in. Human rights translates people's needs into rights. It recognizes that the human person is an active subject and a claim holder, you know? And so when it comes to addressing people's needs, there is a recognition that human rights, that human individuals, people are supposed to be active participants, actively involved in the decisions that are to be made about them and around them.
And during experience sharing, Environmental Africa Field Officer Hope Muzunga noted the importance of giving children a platform to speak out their views.
So as Environment Africa, we are very conscious about the human rights-based approach. It's not something that we just do unconsciously, but we are very much aware of it, even at the whole project cycle. So you cannot talk about the environment and you cannot talk about human rights if you do not involve children, if you do not look at which parts of the society is left out. Children, people with disability, and women. These are the people that are very much affected by environmental and climate change effects. So, Environment Africa provides platforms for children that are normally left out. So, one child from our network by the name of Caleb, we gave him an opportunity to go and present on the Kawe-led pollution case. He went to Geneva on the UN Day of General Discussion in Geneva in September 2016, where he made a presentation on how lead is affecting children in Showa. And a few months later, we saw changes. As we speak right now, even the government has also provided funds to the ZAMI project on pollution in Kawe.
President Edgar Lungu has conveyed his heartfelt condolences to U.S. President Donald Trump and the Bush family on the passing away of former U.S. President George H.W. Bush, who died on 30th November 2018. President Lungu says it is with a deep sense of sorrow that he learned of the death of President Bush. In his message of condolences, Republican President Edgar Lungu says President Bush Sr. will be remembered for his persistent fight for peace, security and stability in the world, which he made with a dedicated service throughout his tenure. He has described President H.W. Bush as a patriot who served as a shining example of service to the country with humility, grace and decency. President Lungu says Zambia joins the rest of the world in mourning a distinguished leader. He prays that the Almighty God grants the bereaved family and the people of the United States of America strength and comfort during the difficulty moment. This is contained in a statement made available to Q News by Special Assistant to the President for Press and Public Relations, Amos Chanda. The Zambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry has called for more information to be given out on the relaunch of the national airline scheduled for the first quarter of 2019. ZASI President Michael Nyirenda says considering that the year 2018 is almost coming to an end, there is a need for the Ministry of Transport and Communications to provide more information on the operations of the national airline. Mr. Nyirenda also hopes that government has learned from the mistakes of the past and will this time around avoid them. He states that situations where ministers and other government officials use the airline without paying should not be entertained this time around. Mr. Nyirenda has emphasized the need for government through the Ministry of Transport and Communications to begin informing the public on the benefits of the national airline to the country and how it will be operationalized, noting that the information currently in the public domain is scanty.
We also should remember that we need to learn from where we didn't do right in the past. So issues of, for example, public officers having what you would call free rides without having to pay. And I know that government has been on record that that's what will happen, but we have to wait and see the actual. We have to walk the talk that exactly that will not happen, because then that will go against the very ideals and it will actually then make us not having learned from what we did in the past when we closed our national airline. So, but I think there needs to be more information. Seeing as we have less than a month, just a month of days, if you're talking about January, one would have expected more information, because you see, without information there's a lot of room for speculation and people tend to, even issues of fake news now take precedence. But one needs to manage these things in such a way that you minimize speculation and just provide information to the public so that then there's minimal questioning, or if indeed there's a question or clarification, it actually only goes to actually clear what may have been a wrong perception or what has not been clear. So for us, it's a wait and see, because until when we get to the detail and see how it's working, there's very little that we can say. But we hope that it will be a learning curve, as I said earlier, and that this will provide a platform to actually improve a lot. I know that in the past we had a very big cadre of experts, as you may say, in the aviation and airline business, which with time, due to loss, death, disease and other things, that card, I believe, has all been lost. If there are a few, they are all working for other airlines. So this will be like the beginning, also on the human capital side, because without an operating airline, you may not have the basis for creating training and whether be it pilots or even cabin staff.
Land has been secured for the construction of the first ever district hospital in Monze District, Southern Province. Monza District Administrative Officer Golet Balo says government has heard the cry of the people of Monze for a district hospital to be constructed. Ms. Balo says government is fully aware of the need to decongest the Monze Mission Hospital, which is the only second-level hospital in the district.
Actually, that comes up every year. Stakeholders are crying for a district hospital. And I may not have details on that, but the ministry is aware, and the ministry has been sourcing for a piece of land, and I think there's a piece of land that was, the ministry is aware that we need to decongest Monze Mission Hospital, and that has been the cry for the people. Year in, year out, people are crying for a district hospital. Though we have the Mission Hospital, you would agree with me that it was built in the year 1966 and the population of Monze was very small. And it is a second-level hospital that receives referrals from surrounding districts. Okay? And so it is highly congested. And so that is why the people of Monze are crying for a district hospital, and the Ministry of Health is aware and is doing something about it.
That's all we have for you in our news, but before we go, a relook of stories making headlines once again. Chief Government Spokesperson Doris Leah has justified the delay in prosecuting criminals swindling members of the general public using fake Facebook accounts. And the Law Association of Zambia, LAS, says that the constitution was not breached when Republican President Edgar Chagwa Lungu recently designated his powers to the Minister of Defense. Thank you so much for your time. Bye-bye.